This week I'm excited to start by talking about creative writing, because your assignment for this week is to write your own science fiction story. In the past, I've had students in my writing classes and literature classes ask, well, can we write our own story? Is part of this class writing a story? Can we write fiction? And usually the answer, unfortunately, is no. But in this class, I think that it's appropriate to try your hand at writing some science fiction, get a feel for what an author goes through, and hopefully have some fun doing it. What I've found in the past when I've had classes where students do some creative writing is it doesn't really matter how quote-unquote good you are at it in a sense of, sentence structure or publishing something. Everybody usually has a pretty cool idea. And so, even though we can talk about the writing, we can talk about the characters, I'm interested to read your ideas. So don't get too caught up in the idea that, I'm not a writer. Just try it. It's one time. It'll be fun, and it doesn't have any real consequence. At the end, after I read everyone's stories, I would like to compile at least some of them into a PDF and share them with the rest of the class. So we'll talk about that after you turn them in. But for today, let's talk a little bit about what makes a successful story and how do you come up with an idea. So let's start with the idea, because that's where you want to start. There's a whole bunch of different ways where you can come up with an idea to generate writing for a story. So you can brainstorm, you can make lists, you can have conversations with your friends and family. You can go online and read message boards and discussion forums. There are certainly places you can find writing prompts. There's a Reddit, if you use the website Reddit, there's a subreddit called Writing Prompts, and I've read some very interesting science fiction writing scenarios, writing prompts on that website. I'm going to supply you with a couple on the D2L shell that you can use. I've also linked some pages from the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association of America with some input on creative writing and how to write a successful story. But just to give you some basic ideas to get you started, I like to say start with either a compelling scenario, like technology develops the ability to bring a dead person back to life, or another common one from science fiction is people meet aliens for the first time. There's a first contact story. Think about the stories that we've read and talked about, and think about some of the premises that they are founded on. Like I said, alien and human encounters, changes in technology, changing the nature of society. And then think of a compelling character who has to experience something as they go through this encounter with the aliens, or how their life is impacted by this change in technology. To write a compelling character, remember that readers want to meet real people in your stories. They don't necessarily want to meet perfect people. It's okay to give a character a superhuman power. It's okay to give them some sort of intelligence that's out of the ordinary. But if you do, consider that you might want to balance that with some sort of a weakness. So maybe she can do math in her head super fast, but she has trouble talking to other women. I don't know. Maybe he can lift a building because of the genetic modifications that the doctors gave him, but maybe he gets very, very tired quickly from this exertion and needs an excessive amount of sleep. Think of some way to make your character real, something that someone can relate to. When you're writing the story, you also want the reader to experience some sort of a change, something either in their perspective or the point of view that they have when they enter the story needs to change, or something needs to change for the character that's meaningful in such a way that the character has some sort of a realization. So, think about, let's say, in 9 Billion Names of God, when the scientists are riding away from the lamasery and the stars start going out. Something fundamental has changed. The assumption that the monks were inaccurate keepers of science because of their religious beliefs was something that was carried throughout that story to the very end, but at the end you have to question it. So when you're thinking about your story, have a turning point, have something that happens. You know, Osden disappears and finds that the whole planet is basically a ball of plant life in vaster than empires and more slow. So these are ways to get your story going and some advice for how you can have a good premise and a good foundation for your story. Really, the best way to become a good writer, and everybody says this, is to read stuff that you like, read stuff that you admire, read stuff that you don't like and admire so much, and figure out what it is that you don't care for. Read. That's the best advice to become a good writer. But for this time, my advice is really just have fun. The only stipulation I have is that try to keep it 10 pages or so. I can't really commit to read a science fiction novel. And I know it's hard to keep stories short, so I'll understand if you maybe compact some of your storyline to keep it in 10 pages. And you'll understand if you give me a 25-page story if I only comment on the first 10. So have fun with the assignment. I have a Dropbox on D2L ready to go, and I look forward to reading your writing.